Hello, everybody. Apologies for the terrible camera and wobbliness and just the face in general. I'm not feeling very well at all. But I want to sort of crack on with this Richard Lehman review series. So we're at number 35 now in this series. And I said in the last review of, what was the last one I talked about? I can't even remember now. After Midnight, that was it. I said with After Midnight that book was one of a few books which I kind of all feel a bit togetherness in terms of how I don't really think they're very good, but I don't hate them. Only book I hate is Ireland, which is my last place. But the next few books are all fairly indistinguishable in the sense that they could really have all been at 36, 35, 34. It's not like uh, it could change on any given day. They're all pretty bad, but I've chosen where I've chosen after a bit of reflection. Book number 35 then on my layman list going up now is his 1996 novel Bite. Only just book number 35. I think this is marginally better than After Midnight in the fact that the first opening scenes are actually reasonably fun before it just completely falls off a cliff. So Bite is about a guy who gets a knock on his door from this girl. She used to be a crush of his 10 years ago. He hasn't seen her or thought about it for 10 years. She knocks on his door and tells him that she's being attacked by a vampire and can he come along and kill the vampire? And he, because he's a Richard Lehman character and he's not a normal human being, he just says, yes, okay, I'll drop everything and that's what we're going to go and do, kill this vampire. And so off they go, and they go to kill this vampire. And that all happens in the early part of the book. And as a short story, it's a lot of fun. It's stupid. It makes no sense to me. Why this guy has dropped everything to do this, believes what she says, why they're not, trying to check out with this guy. He's a vampire. Why they're trying to kill him rather than, just, I don't know, knock him out and find out whether he's a vampire or not. Your guess is as good as mine. But they decide they're going to go and kill him. And once he's dead, and it's not really spoiler because that's in the opening part of the book, they then have to try and dispose of his body. And it's then that they fall into the clutches of the main villain, who's a character called Snow White, and what he's going to do to them. And it just tanks. It just tanks. This is, I said before that a lot of these later Lehman books felt like great ideas that Lehman didn't have a clue what he was doing. And he didn't really know where to go with them. After Midnight was a great example of that because it's just a nonsense story that doesn't make any sense and it doesn't really do anything. But this is even worse in terms of construction, in the sense that whilst the opening bit is far better, and I'd much rather read the opening bit than any part of After Midnight, the rest of it is literally these two characters who make the most stupid decisions and have the most ridiculous of conversations, and nothing else really makes any lick of sense or is explained or has. I mean, the vampire they kill, his name is Elliot, and they have no real belief to understand that he is a vampire and to the fact that his fangs aren't real. And all he's really doing is basically assaulting this girl very early on. And she tells the main character in the car about all the stuff that he used to do to her. So he's no different to the usual Lehman psychos, basically. But we're then presented with these characters who are trying to deal with Snow White, and there's a few scenes that stick out. There's one scene where Snow White has kidnapped a few other characters, and I think he's in a van, and they're in a car following him, and they're following him because he's going to kill and torture these people if they don't follow him. But they don't know these characters and they don't owe them anything. And there's no reason these two characters shouldn't just turn around and drive off and phone the police, but they decide to follow him. But they're also getting drunk whilst they're doing so, whilst driving a car, and not remotely bothered about anything. There's a bit where they decide they're not going to tell the police about what's going on because it's a bad idea, and I'm thinking, boy, it's the best idea you could have possibly done. It's really stupid is what I'm trying to say. It doesn't really make any sense, because if you're concerned about these people, you'd try and save them. You wouldn't do what this villain's asking you to do, even though you know he's going to try and do awful things to you. I mean, the characters are really dense, and it doesn't make any degree of sense as to why any of this is happening, other than the fact that it's a Richard Lehman story. It also follows the traditional layman tropes of being obsessed with breasts and nipples, because there's a bit in this car where the main character, who is described as an adult, I mean, I can't remember how old he is, he's somewhere in his 20s, and the girl he's with has fallen asleep. He's driving a car and he keeps turning her over and looking at her. And we've got page after page after page of scenes describing how her blouse is a bit more open and how he can see inside. And then every 5 minutes he's looking over and you can see a bit more inside. And it goes on for absolutely ages. Literally, like Lehman was just having a moment and having a bit of a jolly while he wrote it. And it's like, what on earth? Why is this guy so obsessed with this? What, you know, it really throws the book down. Like I said, I think the opening part is pretty good, but the rest of it is it's just really sloppily written stuff that doesn't make any real sense. You're constantly screaming at the characters for why they're being so stupid. You don't know why any of this is happening, and it doesn't resolve or explain any of it. And in between all of that, you've got all these really banal conversations. I think there's a bit in which the main girl, she used to be married, and her husband used to rape her, get her pregnant, and then abort the babies, and then do it again. On their wedding night, I think he carved his name into her skin, and she stayed with him until she didn't. Won't spoil that, but it's like, this character, you'd think a character like that would be like the most downtrodden sort of like sponge imaginable, and yet she demonstrates throughout a lot of this story that she's got a strong mind and a strong will, and she comes up with some good ideas. And it's like, why were you in this situation? This person would never have stuck it out with that guy. She would have left him on day one. She's not described as sort of like a downtrodden character, so why was she allowing this man to do these ridiculously cartoonish things? I don't understand it. Again, it just felt like Lehman threw it in there because he had all these great ideas for some horrible stuff, but they were like short story ideas, so he threw them in. And there's quite a few books on this list as we go through that feel like that, like a collection of short stories all just thrown together. So that's what Bite is. It's a pretty terrible book, which is why it's at number 35 on this list. I think that the opening makes it slightly more fun than the last two books I've talked about. It's not as absolutely awful as Island, and it's not as just stupid as After Midnight, but it's still a bad book, which is why at number 35. But things will get better.